Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God, sons and daughters of God, Son of God, the Son of God. The Course in Miracles makes the very bold claim that Jesus is the Son of God, and so are you. That would mean all of us are. So, anyone who's taken a look at non duality in any of its many forms has maybe heard this idea that the world isn't real. What the? What the bleep? The world isn't real? What does that mean? What do you mean the world isn't real? I've I've sure had a very angry reaction to that idea for 20 plus years. And depending on the person who says it, I might still have a bit of a reaction. Because first of all, it's a radical idea. On the surface, it sounds absolutely insane. Not on the surface, it sounds absolutely insane, right? And then the second thing is there's a lot of people going around saying it who haven't really experienced it. It's just like it's something they read from a non-dual teacher and then they go around preaching it, but they don't really live it and they don't behave as if that's the case, right? Um, so so it's a tricky idea. Let's just face it, it's a tricky idea all around because our entire life is based really on the idea that the world is real, right? Like everything we think, say, and do is really just based on that assumption. And the interesting thing is, it is an assumption. Like I never took the time to really investigate. I just assumed it was true, as we all do. We've all been taught, like, this is reality, this is life. So for someone to make that claim that the world isn't real it might bring up some thoughts and feelings. It sure did for me for the last 20 years. So A Course in Miracles starts off by saying nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So right from the start, um, it's basically saying if something can be threatened, and if you look around the world, everything, like I'm looking around, I'm looking out the window, looking out at the neighbor's house, at this, um, I'm staying at Airbnb, like I'm looking at one of my Airbnb hosts, I'm looking at this tree, like everything I see can be threatened. Everything I see around me is um, not impervious, right? Vulnerable. It's all vulnerable, including this body, this computer. And so according to A Course in Miracles, it's actually anything that can be threatened isn't real. The converse is that, the opposite of that is only because it's not eternal, that only the eternal is actually real. So, so the thing is that it's not like the Course in Miracles or any good non-dual teaching just repeats that idea over and over and over because um, that's just not helpful. It's not like it hits us on the head with it, right? It presents it, and then the Course in Miracles presents a very, very logical, almost in a sense, very linear, and yet simultaneously intuitive, but a very linear way to explore that idea and find out if it's true or not. Someone who goes around being like, the world isn't real, and just kind of almost like attacks people with it. It's not really skillful. And probably they haven't actually realized in an experiential way, probably haven't realized the truth of that. It's probably just a little bit more religious. Someone told them, they believed it, and now they're preaching it. So, for so long, I thought that's what the Course in Miracles was, because the first people I really encountered who were into the Course, they were just like, there is no world. They were like yelling it and screaming it, and it was, not literally yelling and screaming, but they were really preaching it, and really almost kind of attacking with it. And the Course introduces that idea right at the start, but then it's a curriculum. It takes you on a full journey to where you can find out for yourself if that's true or not, and skillfully guide you. Because like, let's just say, okay, let's say that I want to go. Okay, let's just say enlighten somebody, like liberate someone. And I just walk down the street, and the first person I see, I walk up to them and I go, hi. And they go, hi. And I go, you know what? All this world around you, none of it's real. This is all an illusion. This is a dream. Um, you know, 99 out of 100 times, what that's going to do is actually contract the person. It's actually the person will get defensive and will literally shut down to anything spiritual. So it's not about preaching that, and it's not about preaching that to ourselves. It's about, the Course in Miracles is a skillful means for coming in touch with what's true and coming in touch with reality. And the bottom line is, the Course in Miracles isn't about, it's about peace. It's about that which leads to peace. And so for anyone who's new to the Course and like, what do you mean the world isn't real? Da, da, da. Like, that can just spin you out. And that just means that's not the lesson for right now. I spent almost 20 years arguing with the Course and arguing with that part of it. And actually what I've come to recognize is I wasn't so much arguing with that part, with that teaching, as I was arguing with the way that teaching was presented to me. It was presented to me very aggressively and very like, you have to believe there is no world or you'll never wake up. So let's be gentle with ourselves and other people, and let's be skillful. And you know what? It's not about believing that. It's about investigating that. And the way we investigate it is the workbook of A Course in Miracles gives very practical exercises. In fact, the workbook starts off by saying, you don't have to believe any of the ideas in this workbook. You're just asked to apply them. Ultimately, to me, it comes down to finding out what's true. It's not so much like reading a book and being like, yes, this is true. It's more like, reading a book and reflecting on it, in this case, the Course, and then in some sense doing some tests, doing some practical exercises to ultimately have an experience. And so the last thing I'll say is, for anyone who's struggling with this idea is, just from, just on a very simple level, is, most of us on the spiritual path believe God is everywhere and in everything. Some people believe God is everything, which I think is a slight distortion of what's true. But regardless, to anyone who has any kind of belief like that, just take a look around. And as you look around, are you seeing God? Are you experiencing God? If you're not, then hopefully you can admit to yourself, like, okay, well, if God is in everything I see, and as I look at that wall, I don't really see God in that wall, or I don't feel the divine, then hopefully you can just admit to yourself, like, okay, well I'm not seeing the full picture. I'm obviously not seeing clearly. And that was really what opened the door to me, is this realization. I had the realization, yes, God is in everything. It was an experience, not even really connected to the course, not connected at all. I was in a deep place of meditation, and I was like, oh my, and I had the experience, like, oh my God, God is everything. Like, I'm surrounded by God. Like, God's really in everything. Like, I'm just surrounded in the sea of God. And then it was a temporary experience, a temporary, you know, you call it whatever, scene, revelation. And then in hindsight, it'd be like, well, wait a minute, I'm looking at the wall, which last time I looked at it was just vibrant with God, both not a little bit visually, but more on a feeling level. And like, well, what's going on? Why am I not seeing and feeling that now? And then what I just came to recognize, sort of first intellectually, and then it goes a little deeper, is like, well, no, I know that what I saw and experienced, I know that is what was true. I know that's real. And so I must not be seeing the full picture. I literally must not be seeing reality right now as I look at that wall. I must not be seeing the truth. And then it's to the point where, well, I'm just not seeing the truth. If I look at something and I don't see the light of God shining in it, then I'm actually not seeing. I'm not seeing what's there. So that's what opened the door for me. And it started with an experience, and then when that experience was done, and I'd be like, "What's going on?" And then sort of this intellectual recognition of, "Oh, God is in everything, but I'm not seeing that right now. Therefore, I must not be seeing clearly." All right, dear ones. Questions, comments, feedback, welcome. Aloha.